بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين أما بعد. Following on from last week we recapped all of the life of the Prophet ﷺ from the age of his birth all the way until he was about 38 or 39 years old. So we had the picture of his whole life, all the major incidents which has happened were all explained in that one, on that one piece of paper. So we all had a good idea of all of the major incidents and how we can benefit from them, why they're important for us and how we bring them into our lives. We also, before we even started, we had split the life of the Prophet ﷺ into three main categories. One was before his prophethood, one was when he was living in Mecca, before he migrated to Medina, and the last one was when he had lived in Medina and he was living there for 10 years. This was the last part of the life of the Prophet ﷺ. So while growing up, all of this was a background. Before we even started his actual life as a prophet, all of that, he gave us an insight into his life, how he behaved with people. And when Allah chose him, because right from the beginning, we see that the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith, he mentions that I am of the best lineage and the best, and he was chosen by Allah. So then all of these characteristics which were part of his life play a part in him being chosen as a prophet. They play a part in him being as influential as he was as well. So all of them are very important to understand and appreciate how all of the characteristics he had actually play a part in him being a prophet, in his effectiveness as a prophet. Especially this week. So the first thing we'll look at this week is when he's in the cave of Hira. So the Prophet ﷺ, he spent time away from the people of Makkah, and he went and in solitude and performed meditation in this cave. For those of us that have been to the cave Hira will know the size of the cave, which is very small. You can just about fit one person in it, and if you sit inside you can only really face towards the Kaaba, and from there you can have a very good view. Even today the view of the Kaaba is very clear from the cave Hira. So the Prophet ﷺ spent a lot of time in the cave Hira. Here one of the key things we notice is his separation from the life of the people of Makkah. So the people of Makkah, they had certain evil traits. We mentioned this at the beginning. Some things they were doing which were wrong. So by him going into the cave, it separated him from this company, from that environment. This is one thing we learn even in our lives. Very often we have to stay away from certain environments. The environment has an effect on us. So if we come here, for example, and we spend time in the environment of the masjid, if we read our beautifully designed poster, we notice that one of the reasons that we come is to spend time in the masjid. That's not just because Shar'an it's something which the Prophet ﷺ said to come early to the masjid, and the person who comes early for salah, he gets the reward of this, and the people whose hearts are attached to the masjid are this. But also because of the environment, it affects. It's a blessed environment. It's the environment of the angels. We come on a Wednesday and we're in an environment of people who are learning about Rasulullah ﷺ. So now everybody here who's now here, they're in this environment of learning. Whether or not we pick anything up or not, but we've come in that environment. We enable ourselves to take something away from this environment. We're then in an environment where everybody together is trying to sort out their lives, trying to talk to Allah, trying to do dua, trying to do dhikr, trying to do muhasabah, all of the things that we do afterwards. That environment has a big effect on us, which is why very often, especially at the beginning, many of us that continued coming right from the beginning will have noticed that the ability we have to develop a relation with Allah while here is very different to any other ability. So then we can think to ourselves that this opportunity that we have, how often do we in a carefree manner do we spend time in the masjid with no real hurry to get out? We're not just in and out in a hurry. We've not just come for Jummah and quickly running back to work. We're not here and having to go somewhere else, but just carefree. Time in the masjid, time learning about something, time with Allah. That kind of environment, when that's created, then that gives us an ability to connect to Allah. And we'll all hopefully by now, everyone's been here more than once, so we'll all have noticed that by now, in that environment of the masjid. But anyway, this looking back at the sheet, this period of meditation, it allowed him to be separate from them, and this allowed him mainly to prepare for what was to come. So obviously the main thing which was going to come was prophethood. The Prophet ﷺ, revelation was going to start. So all of this was part of the preparation of the Prophet ﷺ. All of this was the build-up. So as we know, the background of all 40 years of his life was a build-up. But this more so was an even bigger build-up for that. This separation from the evil of the life of the people of Makkah, the things that they used to get up to completely separate himself and be completely far away. So just to summarize, what actually would happen is he would take food for many days, and then especially when he got older, towards 39, and even when he became 40 years old, he would take food and go and stay in the cave for many days. Then he'd come back to his house and usually take more provisions and go and carry on meditating. So this was his practice. Also, people say that his grandfather, whose name is Abdul Muttalib, his grandfather also used to go and spend time in this cave as well. In fact, he was apparently the first person to do this. So we find this effect of the environment was one of the final things which Allah made sure that he did before he gave revelation to him. So this environment, to cleanse himself from that environment. And also, before we mentioned many incidents of the Prophet ﷺ where he would be kept away from much evil. So we realize the perfection which he was, the embodiment of perfection which he was. That's the first point. The second point is the true dreams. So when we open the book of Hadith Sahih al-Bukhari, Imam Bukhari, the first chapter he brings is about the Bad'ul Wahi, the beginning of Wahi, the beginning of revelation coming to the Prophet ﷺ. And this is the first thing. Obviously people have written about the order of the chapters which he brings. So this is the first thing. He believes that everything else which came was based on this. Without this, Islam would not have existed. Without this, none of Islam would have come into place. Without this, we wouldn't have anything to go back to. So how Wahi came to the Prophet ﷺ, this is a very, very important thing, and it's the fundamental. It's something which we start off with. So he talks about this, and there's a very long hadith which Aisha radiallahu anha narrates, and there she shows how the Wahi came. Now in that very hadith, the true dreams are mentioned as well, that for 6 months the Prophet ﷺ, he had dreams, he would have dreams, he would see dreams, and the next day that dream would come true. So this happened for 6 months in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. And if you know the Prophet ﷺ, overall he was a prophet for 23 years. So in 23 years, if you times that by 2, there's 6 months in 23 years. So one of those 6 months, he was having truthful dreams. So there's another hadith where the Prophet ﷺ mentions that one of the portions of prophethood is true dreams. When a person has true dreams, this is a portion of prophethood which a person has. And in another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that this is 1/46 of prophethood, exactly 1/46. So if he had it for 6 months and his overall prophethood was 23 years, we notice that this fraction works out within that explanation of this hadith. So this is what we see from the Prophet ﷺ, that he would have these dreams, and then again this is another build up to the revelation. We find this with many prophets, many examples of this we see. But dreams are something which would sometimes give commands to prophets, be used by prophets to notice how they're going to achieve a lot. When the father of Yusuf alayhi salam, Yaqub alayhi salam, he saw that Yusuf alayhi salam had a dream. From that was the big indication. Even the Quran indicates on this, that he knew that great things were going to happen to him because he saw a good dream. So there's 3 types of dreams generally. One is a good dream, one is a bad dream, one is just a completely irrelevant dream. So the good dreams come from Allah. These are often visions, and the Prophet says these are part of prophethood. This is one form of revelation. So this is the good dream. Then the bad dream comes from shaitan, and this is something which either evil things come at that point, or things which we wouldn't want to know. Sometimes some people refer to these as nightmares. There's different ways of understanding how shaitan gives dreams, but sometimes these are bad dreams, evil dreams. And the last dream is the general dream, the natural kind of dream, based on the thoughts we have in our mind. So then if we have a bad dream, we're not meant to tell anybody, you're meant to keep that to yourself, and you make dua that doesn't affect you. And if you have a good dream, then we can get that interpreted by somebody who knows how to interpret dreams. And again, even this is affected by environment. The things we talk about throughout the day, the things we think about throughout the day, the things that are at the front of our mind throughout the day, these are the things we're going to end up dreaming about. So if we have good intentions, good aims, good ambitions, then we'll dream about those as well. But if a person spends his life in futile things, then even when he's dreaming, he'll have these kind of dreams as well. So these are the 3 types of dreams which can happen to all of us. And even if we think about this, even this kind of revelation is this is one form of revelation which is one of our ways sometimes of connecting to Allah. We have many ways of connecting to Allah. We may say that the prophets have these ways, but we also have our ways as well. So Allah can give dreams, Allah can, in different ways, He can give visions to people, people can see things, Allah can make divine things visible to some people as well. So then the next main thing which happens is Jibreel alayhi salam, he brings down the revelation, he brings down the Quran. And again, this is all in that hadith, the first one of the early hadith on the first page of the Sahih of Imam Bukhari. He brings this very long hadith where Aisha radiallahu anha says that he had dreams, he used to stay in the cave, and then finally this incident happens where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in the cave and an angel came to him, and obviously this was the angel Jibreel alayhi salam, and told him to read. And then this angel also squeezed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So obviously this is completely unexpected. The Prophet ﷺ wasn't waiting for this moment. He didn't know this moment was going to happen. So when it suddenly happened, the angel came in his original form and he squeezed the Prophet ﷺ and said, read. Then the Prophet ﷺ said that Ma ana biqari, I am not a reader, or there's different ways that this can be translated. One is I can't read. One is I'm unable to read right now, as in I can read, but right now I can't, I can't make it out. There's too much pressure. And also because it was an angel coming, many scholars interpret that this ability to not read was because of the pressure of the situation. It was because of the fact that an angel had come, and that's why he couldn't read at that time. But also we know generally the Prophet ﷺ was not tutored. He didn't know how to read or write. So this is something which makes sense as well, that he said that I'm unable to read. But the reason that doesn't make sense is because obviously there's very few narrations which say that Jibreel alayhi salam actually he didn't bring the Musaf with him that start reading. So obviously nobody says that. So the fact that he can't read, whether he's capable of reading or not, is irrelevant. It's about reciting. It's about whether or not you can repeat after me, so to speak. So this is why many scholars say that he was at that time, due to the pressure of the situation, he wasn't able to repeat what the angel was saying at that time. This happened once, then it happened a second time. The Prophet ﷺ replied in the same way. Then thirdly, Jibreel alayhi salam squeezed the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and then he said, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. So Iqra means read, and then bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, read in the name of your Lord who has created you. So this is the first revelation ever that came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. On the sheets there's a printing error, but I realized after I printed them all off, so I didn't want to waste all of the paper. So Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, and the second one obviously is meant to be khalaq al-insana min alaq. But the rest of the English is all correct. So the Jibreel alayhi salam came, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. So he says read, he says I can't read, then he says read in the name of your Lord who created. And obviously now this unconditionally, without conditioning what he created, makes perfect sense, because Allah created everything. So everything that's created, read in the name of that Lord, that who's created absolutely everything. So read in his name. And then even here, this Iqra, it can have two meanings. So you can have recited orally, or to actually read while looking in. And this even makes sense because if this is the very first verse of the Quran, overall we know that from ourselves all the way to the Prophet ﷺ, we have a chain transmitted both ways, orally and textually. So textually goes back to obviously the time of the Sahaba, but the oral transmission of the Quran goes from myself and many of us all the way back to the Prophet ﷺ. We have a chain which goes from our teachers all the way through to the Prophet ﷺ on how to recite the Quran properly. And the other chain is in the book as well. The text which was written down was it was written down by Uthman radiallahu anhu at his time, and even the text was also passed down. So we take the two meanings of Iqra, one is to read, one is to recite. Recited orally, it was recited, it's been recited all the way from the Prophet to us, and also the text and the book itself and the Mus'haf has also been passed down in two ways. So this Iqra, both meanings can be taken, whether you read or you recite. And this is how the Quran has been preserved for us today. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he then says, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaqa al-insana min alaq, that he created man from alaq. So now the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's obviously Jibreel alayhi salam is telling him that you can read, read in the name of that being who created you. Now he created everything and he created you as well. He can make you do whatever you want. So it reignites his belief in Allah, and that Allah has created you, so you can now do whatever you want. And then he reminds all of us of what we were created from. So it doesn't mean alaq, which literally alaq is to dangle something which is dangling. So generally refers to the embryo. Some say it's a clot of blood as well. But the embryo which a human was created from, it refers to that. So then all the way back to where you're born from. You were born from nothing, so now Allah will teach you. So now this is what we come to, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions that you were nothing at one point, and now everything you've become has been through the grace of Allah. Everything's through. It reminds him of his tawheed. his belief in Allah. Everything you've got, everything you own, all the qualities you have, everything you've achieved has been through the grace of Allah. Then he says, Iqra wa rabbuka al-akram. So read wa rabbuka al-akram. Reading comes again. The reason reading comes twice, there's many reasons for this. But the main reason why reading comes twice, one of them is that the Prophet ﷺ, in his life generally, he wasn't responsible for changing everybody individually. So Abu Talib, his uncle, didn't become Muslim. His uncle Abu Lahab was an enemy of Islam. Different things which he wanted to happen didn't happen. So the Prophet ﷺ, his job in the Quran, it tells us as well, the job of the Prophet was to just recite unto the people, to tell the people the message, to give them the message. That's why he's known as a Rasul, as a messenger. So the Prophet ﷺ, his job was to read and just carry on reading, not to engage in how people respond and not to worry about his job. He had a job to do, and this is iterating this fact to him that you have a job to do. And then after this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Alladhi allama bil qalam." So then these two iqras, they have two meanings. The first iqra, referring to religious knowledge, that read and learn the Quran, learn the hadith, learn about Islam, learn how to pray, learn about Allah. The second iqra, Iqra wa rabbuka al-akram alladhi allama bil qalam. Most scholars agree this also can refer to secular knowledge, because now it refers to allama bil qalam, Allah taught by the pen, so writing things down. Now this is a great blessing, to be able to, if I'm saying something, if you want, you can record exactly what I'm saying by writing it down. Obviously it's a very obvious thing, but this is a great blessing that we have, that we can record things by writing them, record things by orally as well. So if you look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the first thing he taught Adam alayhi salam was how to speak, was the names of all the things and how to communicate with other people. This is one of the blessings. If we didn't have communication, we wouldn't be able to advance. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he also says that he taught Idris alayhi salam how to write as well. So the first writing was also taught by Allah. So now if we think of both of those things, writing and orally teaching somebody something, both of these things were taught by Allah originally. Everything anybody learns, whether it's secular or religious, it's always learnt through a faculty which Allah has enabled or Allah has taught. If Allah hadn't taught how to speak, we wouldn't be able to learn. If He hadn't taught how to write, it would be hard to educate ourselves in different ways. And this is the first thing that we learn about this. And also going back, allama al-insana ma lam ya'lam, that everything the human knows, the last verse, allama al-insan, he taught insan everything he knows, or things which he didn't know before. So every achievement that we have, whether it's in this world or the hereafter, or secular or religious knowledge, all the knowledge, it's something which Allah has taught us. So now it's very disrespectful for us to then attribute our achievements and successes solely to ourselves. So attribution goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because all of the things that we learn, firstly the creation of yourself, which He says in the first line, that خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ عَلَقٍ, the fact you were created from Allah. If you hadn't been created, you couldn't have done nothing. Then He taught how to speak. If you didn't know how to communicate, you couldn't learn anything. And then how to write as well, allama bil qalam, that all these writing is something you couldn't have done by yourself. So now this is why we notice Muslims, scholars say, because of this kind of revelation, we notice that the golden age of Islam was established. So 100 years after Islam, within 200, 300, 400 years, we notice that Islam became the center for all kinds of studies. People would come to North Africa, to Spain, to study medicine, engineering and physics. All of these things would be studied in the Islamic world. And people would come study and then come back to England, come back to France. And this is well documented, that people would go at that time, just like nowadays, we would go to America and England to go to Oxford and Cambridge. So that we don't go back, we stay in the country. But those times they would go to the Muslim world, learn it, and come back and bring the goodness back. So again, this point is back to these two iqras. First iqra, religious studies, learning Quran, learning Sunnah. And the secular studies, we should have an awareness of how we can improve ourselves, depending on what kind of stage of life we are at. But we should have basic awareness of the world around us, of people around us, of some idea of politics. We should know who the Prime Minister is. We should know basic things about the country we're living in, so we can engage with the country. This is one thing. If you look at the life of the Prophet ﷺ, he was clued on about everything. He was a very good trader, he was very honest, and people knew him, people respected him because of this. If somebody doesn't know how to cross the road, nobody's going to respect that person, because he's not very useful. So then we learn all of these things as well to make ourselves better human beings. So sometimes self-help books, developing ourselves, meditating, these kind of things, which sometimes we consider to be, they're not from Islam. Meditating isn't from Islam, so we're not going to do it. But if People tell you that meditating will improve your life, it will make you a better person. If you take out some time from your life and meditate, it will make you a better person. So we try and do it, and we try and see if we can improve our lives in that way. It doesn't have to be via, doing zikr in a certain way or praying in a certain way always. We can make ourselves more spiritual and more understanding of ourselves by using these methods as well. And this is something, again, we're told to improve ourselves and achieve the highest that we can, to do sabaqah in these kind of things. So meditation is one example, diet is one example. If we go to the gym and follow a certain diet plan or a certain workout plan, and then we say, oh, this is bid'ah, you can't use workout plan or so and so. So we have to be very careful how we use it. So again, you make yourself strong and be ready. The Prophet ﷺ encouraged, making sure you can ride a horse and you can do archery, and swimming as well is encouraged. So all of these things we should try and incorporate into our lives. Whether we do swimming or not, or actually ride a horse or not, or whether do archery, it's irrelevant, as long as we actually develop our bodies so we are healthy. Also eating, we make sure that we're very careful with the food that we eat. Again, different ways, sugar, there's so many things about sugar which are, we may say that this is just something to frighten us, but it's the truth. If everyone's agreed that sugar is bad for you and sugar is addictive and sugar is worse than other addictions, then we should be careful about this. Carbohydrates, certain types of rice and pasta and these kind of things. The meat that we, again, very careful we should be with the type of meat that we're eating, the injections that they're given, and we try and develop our diet so it's healthy, it's organic. So again, these are all things we don't learn directly from, we're not going to look at a hadith that tells you not to eat, because obviously at that time everything was organic. The life of the Prophet ﷺ wasn't organic, his diet was organic. The dates didn't used to be, they didn't used to have chemicals put on them. Everything was organic at that time, as was the animals that were slaughtered. So these differences are something sometimes we learn from the people who are experts in this field. Obviously when we fall ill, we don't, if we break a leg, we don't just sit there reading namaz, do we? We go to the hospital. So just like this, to improve our health, we look after our diet, we look after our soul, we try in some form of meditation, and we also look after our body as well and do some form of exercise. But anyway, that was not part of the script again. Again, fundamentally, if you look just briefly at these verses, that's one split, religious and secular education, to educate ourselves in both ways. But the main thing this teaches is ilm, knowledge, making sure that you know about Islam, making sure that you know about the world around you, making sure that you know stuff. And education is the best thing that you can do, and it's something which will put you ahead of other people. And this is why even the Sahaba who established the Islamic empire, who established the golden era of Islam, they were the pioneers of that. They were the pioneers of Islam being the center of engineering and medicine, and people learning from Islam, and Muslims translating the books into languages so that the people of Europe could benefit from the Muslims, because they advanced in these kind of things. So again, we try and keep ahead and keep on top of these kind of things. But generally we see the value given, الَّذِي عَلَّمَ بِالْقَلَمِ, that he taught right from the beginning of Islam, the emphasis was on learning. So now, alhamdulillah, we come here, we try and learn about the Seerah of Rasulullah, how we bring that into our lives. We learn about Quran, how we bring this in itself is a tafsir. Many of us, we may have heard this before, we may have never known the significance of these verses. How these, literally, these are the very basis of Islam is on this. And we'll see in Seerah when you come how much time they spent teaching and learning. How did the Prophet become who he became? How did the Sahaba become the people that they became? And how much emphasis there was on teaching and learning. And a lot of that is down to this very first verse and the line, which is the road which is then set out by Allah. Okay, inshallah, on this section, inshallah, because I don't want to talk for 45 minutes continuously, so we'll have 2 question sessions in the middle. So this will be, instead of me talking, you get a chance all to talk. Don't worry, don't need to get scared. I won't ask you the questions. So you'll talk to the person next to you, and you can ask them the questions and discuss the questions for 2 or 3 minutes, so that those of us that are sleeping can wake up, inshallah. So just briefly, inshallah, there's 3 questions which have all been covered. So just briefly answer the question with the person next to you, and then we'll go through the answers, and then we'll go on to the next one, inshallah. So take the initiative and speak to the person next to you, inshallah.
You took the
He used to go to KZ that we told him to meditate there. It's old
How many types of religions are there? You've been on 6 months for every single one.
So meditation,
worship
No, sorry, the first dream is the second dream is show something.
how many types of dreams are there?
The third one is something that you can think about.
Types of dreams.
What were the first revelations? What was Prophet doing? To be honest, I can fast forward this.
Exactly how it happens. So in our own life, we see like we read their like good dreams, bad dreams.
When he's quite troubled by his blind man,
This is the same angel. It sounds like the same
You don't tell everybody.
Is everyone done? Russell, you done? Siddiq, you done? Alpha. Joel.
What he said about knowledge.
Yes, I finished. Alpha. Norain. Yeah, so looking at the questions.
We had a nice little session here as well.
Yeah, so first question, the question is really easy, man. Question 1: what would our Prophet do in cave, and why is it important?
He went to go and meditate, get away from Mecca and from all the bad environment as well.
Okay. Why is that important?
think about his ummah.
Think about his ummah.
About creation. That was important to prepare him for prophethood as well.
Prophet, that's one reason. There was another reason which he spent about 10 minutes talking about. That's the main reason. Which is close to preparing to Prophet, but what does it do? What does it allow you?
Say keep away from the evil.
Yeah. So this is the main thing. Keep away from the evil. To have good company. Yeah, so company affects the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Next thing was the types of dreams. So obviously this is very easy again. Three types of dreams. Good. And good, bad and natural. Okay. Number 3, the first revealed verses. What about? And that's Iqra. What are they about?
Say read in the name of the Lord.
What are they about though?
That's a revelation.
It's a revelation that you have to read.
Do you know what were they about?
Knowledge.
Knowledge. Good. So the main thing was knowledge and both types of knowledges basically. So onto the back. Khadija. So obviously the Prophet ﷺ, he had these verses revealed to him, these 5 verses, and then he came back home. So he came back to his wife Khadija radiallahu anha, and obviously naturally this is not something he expected. So this is very, very important. The Prophet ﷺ, he didn't expect this, and it wasn't premeditated. It wasn't something he thought about, like, I'm going to become a prophet, so then I'm going to, tell everyone in this way, I'm going to be calm and all this. So you can tell by his reaction that the Prophet ﷺ, he was not expecting this, and as he came back he was shivering and trembling. He didn't really know what to do. To the extent that even the Sharia, the way we understand it, because of the severity of experiencing wahi and how scary it was, he wasn't acting as he would normally. He wasn't in full control. He had to rely on his wife to help him at this point. So the Prophet ﷺ, he came, he was not expecting this. This proves that that he didn't, or at least he didn't plan to make it up. If he planned to make it up that I'm going to become a fake prophet and I'm going to take over the world, he would have just relaxed and stayed calm, and he would have planned it in time for everything. But the way it came to him at a time he wasn't expecting it, and then he had to be calmed down by other people. He was reassured by other people. So Khadija radiallahu anha, as soon as he got home, this is what she said to him. He said that this has happened, this very scary thing. He was trembling and shivering. Now she reassured him, and she was almost his rock at this time. So she said to him that Inna Allah la yukhzika abada, that Allah will never destroy you. And then she gave Allah will never cause harm to you, to come to you, yukhzika. Then he gave these 5 reasons, 5 main reasons, and there's different narrations of these reasons, but these are the ones that we find. Innaka latasilu rahim. Number 1, you maintain the family ties. And watasdiqul hadith, you always tell the truth. Watahmilul kal, you bear the burden of the weak. Tahmil literally means to carry. Kal is the burden. You bear the burden, you carry the burden of the weak people. Tukri dhaif is guest. Tukri, you look after them, you feed them, you give them hospitality, you're hospitable. There's not really an English word for, hospitable is there, but it's to completely take care of the guests that come in. And watu'inu ala nawa'ibil haqq, you help in every haqq cause, in every righteous cause. Everywhere there's good to be done, tu'in, you do i'ana there. I'ana, the same one in iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, we seek help from Allah. So tu'in, you help. Wa tu'inu ala nawa'ibil haqq, you help on all the good causes. Now this is the things which she chose from his life. We looked at his background of his life. We looked at all the things that he done. But again, this shows the kind of character he had, how he was trusted. Khadija says that Allah will not waste you, and these are the qualities she chose. All of these qualities, nowadays we're in need of them as Muslims. These are the qualities that we need to implement into our lives. Like, without condition, like there's no that maybe you need this one, maybe you don't need this one. All of these are qualities we should all have in our lives, and these are qualities which the Prophet ﷺ, they made up his outstanding character. These are things undisputably to be followed. There's some things about the Sunnah. Do we eat, the way the Prophet ate on the floor, with our hands and shame? All of these kind of things are disputed. Some people say yes, some people say no. But do we have the hairstyle and cutting the hair and the beard and all these kind of things? But this thing, when it comes to akhlaq, when it comes to character, when it comes to good qualities and being good with other people, the akhlaq of the Prophet ﷺ is praised in the Quran by Allah so much that the way he deals with people, the way he respects other people, and the way he looks after people was something which was always praised. So in whatever way you look at it, you'll always have praise for that. This is even before he's really become a prophet. These qualities were in his life even before prophethood. So before we even look at the main thing that we see, these all link together. They all have one thing at the heart of them, which is selflessness, to not care too much about yourself. La tasilu rahim, you join ties. So even if somebody else doesn't want to know you, doesn't want to be part of your family, you stay hard to keep talking to them. You don't just give up on them. And this is something which is always important, that whenever we have a rift with a brother, with a sister, with a parent, with any family member, we try everything we can to try and keep them within our family. We keep that relationship with them. And obviously, even we go further, even with our Muslim brothers, we try and always find reasons to speak to everyone. We don't find reasons just to cut off ties with people. So to join ties, number 1. A lot of the time this is selfless because it's part of our getting at